Hello, Studio 108 Seekers and Sages. I am so happy to be here today because I'm connecting with someone who just brings me so much joy, so much lightness, so much inspiration and excitement about everything I'm involved in, and I don't know, the potential of my projects, my creativity, my business, my offerings. So I want to introduce you to my friend Lia Moore, live with us today from Detroit, Michigan. So hi Leah, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you, Tracy, so much for having me on. I'm super excited. Number one, as we know, like our connection is so unique in itself. It is literally our fractals bringing us together. So I'm very excited that to be here and to be talking with you guys.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're one of the people that you know, when we think about how you and I met each other, we're not really sure.
Yeah, exactly. The universe literally brought us together.
Yeah, and you actually held some event that I found on, I think it was through Rama School, because we both practice Kundalini Yoga through Rama Institute in LA. Even though you're in Detroit and I'm outside of Cleveland, like it's such a coincidence and a beautiful thing that somehow I found you tagged onto an event you had, and then brought you out here to do some work with the advanced teacher training that I work with. And you asked me, like, how did you find me? And I'm like, I don't know, it was some sort of a something, but aren't we friends?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I mean, okay, so we know where we're going with this topic today, but I'm like, just kind of giving you a glimpse into it, is that, you know, there's so many people in the world that are so worried about their territory. And tomorrow we actually, oh no, it's not tomorrow, it's a couple weeks from now, but it's just like, it's what I'm studying right now. And as I'm starting to talk, you guys will understand even more and more why it's every time I study, like this is what's going on. But we worry about our territories, we worry about our resources, we worry about what we have. But the thing is the universe is that we're all just fractals of one giant piece, and our fractals will find us when they're ready for the information that they need. So it doesn't matter if I'm teaching the exact same thing as somebody else, they're not the same fractals. So they might actually be repelling each other, whereas you're a part of my fractal. We are a part of each other's fractal. So we are designed to be magnetized to each other, regardless of where we are in the world. So one of the beautiful things about of learning human design, and then of course also embracing Kundalini Yoga, is the fact that you get this concept that there is no competition because you have a specific quota of people that you are here to show up for.
100%. And I also feel like the competition model is such, well, I mean, it's old school, because the only way we're going to shift humanity and shift ourselves into a higher way of being, a more loving, compassionate way of living, is if we help each other. I mean, it's like when they say how like there's an overload of yoga teachers. I'm like, oh, I don't know. It's going to take a lot of yoga teachers. It's going to take a lot of yoga teachers to help people get through these really hard times. So I don't know. I hope we have enough yoga teachers.
And not even that. It's like you also have to have good yoga teachers, because there's yoga teachers, but we all have, they come from different mentalities too.
Right.
You know, you have teachers who come from even the old school mentality still of like, this is my territory, these are my people, this is what I do. Instead of understanding, like, here I am to serve on a larger scale, and whomever is going to show up is supposed to be there for me, and I am supposed to be there for them. And yeah, we do need more yoga teachers. We need more human design experts, or I should say we need more people experimenting with their human design, because there is no such thing as a human design expert. I'm just going to put that out there right now. So I'm really glad you didn't give me that as a title, because that's my first correction for everybody. There are no experts. There are people who've been in the experiment longer, but there's no experts. There's people who know more because they've studied longer, or know or studied more information. There's no experts, because you're the only person who's an expert in you is you.
100%. And I think too, when you start talking about something like human design and our journey forward in terms of spiritual evolution of humanity, if you're at the cutting edge, if you're talking about and experimenting with, toying with the latest ideas that are coming forth, you're not going to be an expert, because it's new and it's fresh, and we're all just kind of figuring it out with each other here. So I want to hear more about human design because my community here is not very well versed. And so my guess is that there are quite a number of people tuning in that don't know what human design is. So can we just start with like, what is it?
That is the loaded question, honestly. And actually, I almost feel like sometimes it's better to say what human design isn't than what human design is, because human design is so much. So I want to start with what it isn't. It's not a personality test. It's not a horoscope. It's not a future caster. It's not, you know, it drives me crazy. It's not a religion. It's not, you know, it's nothing like this. It is in its boiled down point. It is a physical representation of our energetics that we are as creatures, each individual. It is a differentiation machine. It allows us to see who we are in ways that, one, we can't understand because it's our unconscious side, but then also be able to relate to our conscious side. And the intent of human design in general is to figure out how we are unique, not how do we fit into the masses of everybody else. Mm-hmm. So we have to speak to the masses, which is the reason why you get the types and the strategies and the authorities, because that people have to be able to relate to something first. Mm-hmm. And then once they've gotten that, then they get to find out even more about how they are different from each other. So
uniquely designed.
Oh yeah.
Uniquely designed.
Yeah. And human design is another awareness tool, just like Kundalini Yoga. It's an awareness tool. It's all about becoming more aware of who you are so that you can show up in the world in your best light. Mm-hmm. Knowing where you have a tendency to fall into a shadow or where things might be more of a struggle for you. And so because of that awareness, you become a better person because you can, oh wait, that's not me. Like I'm realizing I'm being influenced or impacted by the universe, by the people who are around me, by the things that are around me, by my environment. And human design lays out your perfect blueprint of if you were to work in your perfect operation, this is how you were designed. This is the experiment piece. So if we want to go down into if we want to take it back to religion and we want to say, hey, God made me unique, which we all grew up saying, regardless of where you are in your spirituality now or your religious aspects now, God made each and every one of us unique. Well, this blueprint shows me exactly how he made me unique. And even if my blueprint looks similar to somebody else, one little aspect of my design will make me a completely unique person. So you are the only you on the face of the planet. There's no one else that has been designed. It might be one little gate, or it might be a base or a tone or a color, something that makes you unique, but there's no people. And if you want to go into the universe, right? And we want to talk about how the universe, we're all a part of the experiment. We're all a part of the universe wants to experience everything, right? We want to experience all. Well, we're just one aspect of that experience. So how can I make it different? Yeah, I may have cookie cut this part, but I'm going to change this one little piece here. And I'm going to change that one little piece there for every piece of that cookie so that I get to experience every element of the universe and every element of being a human on the face of the planet. So human design really, again, is an awareness tool. It's here as an ability to find out what your best gifts to the world are and to really kind of avoid those shadows or to work with the shadows even of because that's, again, your shadows, when we get deeper into it, are actually where your wisdom comes from. And your wisdom is what you're here to learn about. And what you learn about is what you're here to share with other people.
100%. I think what I love about one thing that I'm going to capture two things from that. One is I loved about human design how multifaceted it was. And I loved about human design that it was really about alignment. Mm-hmm. So like when you tell me I'm uniquely designed, then I'm feeling for alignment to my design. Mm-hmm. Rather than alignment to the person on the Instagram page or alignment to some um, 3 best tools or ways to generate customers on a Thursday. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have to align to anything out there. Like, I'm really just looking to align more clearer and with greater integrity to this, like that I am. And that I found was really empowering. But if we shift back to this multifaceted thing, and I see over your shoulder there, you've got a diagram. The human design is a little of astrology laid on top of like a chakra system, laid on top of the Tao Ching,
I Ching.
I Ching, yes.
I Ching.
And
Yeah,
so you want to like give a brief thought on each of those to kind of help us figure out, because the multidimensionness of it is really what gives it its richness and its maturity and makes it, I think, like next level compared to any one of those alone.
Absolutely. So all of these, I mean, the best way to describe what human design is, it is this 5, it's a gamish. I love the word gamish, is this conglomeration of 5 humanology understandings. So it brings together the chakra system from the Hindus, the Kabbalah from Judaism. It brings the I Ching from the Chinese, and it brings which one did I just miss? Astrology, Western astrology. And then the last one is going to be quantum physics. And so the quantum physics and the I Ching actually kind of marry together because it talks about the codons. We actually have 64 codons in our genetic code. That's what makes up an individual strand of DNA. Those 64 codons are also represented in the actual chart as 64 different gates. And these 64 gates are how the I Ching, the Chinese, went through the year. The course of the year is 64 gates that go in they're in a mandala that goes actually counterclockwise, just like an astrology. And then astrology, of course, most of us are familiar with astrology because we all know that we're Aries, or we're, Taurus or Libra or Virgos. And then we know that we have specific houses, and there's, the rising and the descending and all these things, north nodes, south nodes. All that information has been brought into this wealthy, like just extremely it can be extremely complicated. Let's just put it that way. There's a lot there, but there's a surface that you can start with that can get you through so you can start to understand. And then the Kabbalah is the one that is still a little bit harder for me to understand how it works into human design, I'll be honest. But it has something to do with how the chart is laid out, and how in the Kabbalah, when you're looking at the Kabbalah, the layouts, there's 13 and how those various lines run. So it kind of gives you that same principle when you're looking at the chart itself. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's got this wealth of information, and it pulls from all of these various methods and understandings that we've had over many, many years.
Many cultures.
And then brings them together, cross cultures, brings them all in together. So it's an understanding that goes way beyond each of them. So it basically takes the best of all worlds and continues to grow with it.
I mean, I think that there's a real sophisticated conversation available through that, and the human design in and of itself was channeled in the 80s. Am I correct?
Yes. The gentleman's name is Robert Krakow. This is his original name. He changed his name to Ra Uru Hu when he did have this experience. It was an 8-day experience he had with what he calls the voice in Mallorca. In Mallorca, I believe he was. And in this experience, he was asked if he was ready to work, and was given all of this information. Are you ready to work? Because we're going to put you to work. The voice said, are you ready? And now he actually shares a design with you. He was also a manifester. And so he was given all of this information to channel through, to get it down onto paper, and then to be the spokesperson for this information, to share this information. And of course, you have to be around the right people. I'm sorry, he was in Ibiza, not Mallorca. He was in Ibiza. Apparently, I'm getting a conversation in the ear telling me I was wrong.
Right.
But it's one of those things where it came down as a certain information. You can only absorb so much at a time. And then it continued to evolve until he died in the 90s. and I won't say evolve in terms of like changing, but it grew. It actually got more in depth as you went along, because after you know the foundation, you can absorb more information, but I can't give you everything at once. Now he, in a way, was given everything at once. And because he had an open head as well, whenever he would go into a topic, whenever he taught, he would literally pick the topic and then show up.
Yeah. So I want to swing back for that, because an open head doesn't mean like that his head opened. It just meant that his head center was open and available, which means that he could channel pretty readily. So
Correct.
he could show up with just a topic and count on a stream of consciousness to come through and speak through him. And
Right.
that's really that's really terrifying and beautiful.
Yeah, it's kind of, if you think about some of the I can't, why am I'm drawing such a blank on the other major Hicks, Abraham Hicks, same principle. Yeah. She shows up, right? She shows up to and then just is ready to be the channel for whatever information is supposed to come out. And so that's actually how all of his lectures were taught, is that he had the foundation of what he was going to be teaching you. You were coming in to learn about the 64 gates and how to make money with them. But what was there was not prepared. It was just like, okay, so we're looking at this center, and this center is this, and this is what this information is. So to kind of go back a little bit too, because you actually said something about the open head. The open head, there's 9 centers. So in the 1800s, we went from being 7-centered beings. So if you understand the chakra system, you understand the 7 centers of them that most people are aware of. We went from 7-centered beings to 9-centered beings. Now that doesn't happen overnight. So it's an evolutionary process of becoming a 9-centered being. And that 9 centers are the 9 centers you see on a human design chart. So that includes the 7 that we're familiar with: the head, the ajna, the throat, the solar plexus, the sacral, and the root. But it includes 2 new ones called the G center and the ego, or the heart. And then the solar plexus and the spleen actually split in a way as well. So you have these new centers that they just hold different energy. And so each of those has different gates in them, and the gates are connected into other channels or into other centers. So you have, if you're looking at a chart, if anybody hasn't looked at a chart before, if you look at a chart, you'll see some of them have centers that are white, and some of them have centers that are colored in. And then some of them have all white, and some will have white with a little circle in there. So that's just kind of, like I said before, it's a blueprint of your actual energetic imprinting. It's who you are at your core. If you were able to look on the inside, this is the genetics that you were given when you were born. And that information is based on about 90 days. It's 88 days before you were born. And then the information of the day you were born. That's how you get a personality side and a conscious side. So an unconscious side and a conscious side to your chart, which is another reason why I love human design over a lot of the different things that you see out there. Because most of the tests that you take, I also am a business applicant of human design, and a lot of the discs, the Myers-Briggs, even enneagrams, they all take into account your conscious side, because they're all asking you questions and you have to mentally process those. Well, human design takes your conscious side, but your conscious side is the day that you were born. That's the imprinting that you were born with. And then it takes your unconscious side, which is the imprinting that you were given about 88 days or 88 degrees before you were born. So a lot of times we will put our minds to something. So, we decide that we're going to do something, and then mentally we're going to do it. And subconsciously we pulled ourselves back. And this actually helps us to marry why that happens, because we can see where the other side of us, the unconscious side of us, could be either helping us or actually giving us more time to learn.
And it also gives us a little bit of consistency to work from too, because every time I take this personality test, it's like, you're in a different place, which probably says a lot about all my centers, because they're all, so many of them are open. I'm a different person every day, babe.
Yes. And that's why I've always been fascinated with strength finders tests. Like I went it through strength finders. Like I was always looking for the perfect system to like learn about myself and be like, okay, these are my strengths. But then tomorrow they're slightly different. And I always hated that. I always hated taking those kinds of tests because I always felt they were subjective.
Yeah.
So how do I feel in the moment? Well,
Yeah.
this takes that ability out of the question. You don't get a choice about how you feel in the moment. Although, as you said, you change every day, and that comes from the imprinting of, and this is the astrological influence, right? So we are influenced by the planetary alignments, by what we call the neutrinos, the energy that flows from person to person. So we can be different with every single person that we're around because we are being imprinted, or we are able to access their energy or their gifts or what it is that we are to be connected with them for.
Yeah, and I think when you were first giving the explanation, you used the word human creature. And I feel that way really acutely, like it helps me kind of get some distance and some witnessing power to think of myself as like a human creature, a human instrument, this energetic instrument that I'm living within, you know, and it gives me some space to be honest and to be a careful observer, like a really astute, discerning observer, instead of like constantly just assuming and being flushed down and tagging and blaming in the way society does. Like, I'm having a flush of depression coming through. I'm not depressed. I'm not a depressed like I'm having an energetic experience that is manifesting in this way, and it's giving me this sensation, So anytime I can get like some space in between, the situation and my understanding of it, like a little crack in the fence there to say, like, I got some insight, like what's really going on. So it's a really exciting system for that. So can we touch real quick on, like, maybe we can compare your type, my type, and have a little conversation about some of the helpful, like, I think the tags can be helpful. I mean, it's an oversimplification, of course, and anyone who wants to get into their own specific design would want to reach out to you personally, or someone like you who, is a coach and an experimenter of human design. Like, but for just some generalities so that people can get a feeling of how this kind of understanding can help them function better as a person. And I know you said, like, using the gates to make money. Like, human design is a really impactful tool for understanding how we operate in our businesses as entrepreneurs, as leaders in our businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to go back really quick to your one point about your being able to separate from yourself, because that is actually a big proponent, is that you are the passenger.
Excellent.
You are the conscious passenger in this vehicle, and the vehicle already knows how to do everything. It's perfectly designed. That is the body imprinting. That is your unconscious side. And then your conscious side comes in and goes, no, I know how to do everything. That's the passenger.
That wasn't what my mother said.
Exactly. That's not what my teacher said. That's where we get imprinted by other people, right? And so that's the point. The point of human design also is for us to be able to pull back and to become the passenger in our life. That doesn't mean that we don't have anything to do, that we're not active in our lives, but we then become more conscious of when we are being in alignment with ourselves and we're not.
100%.
So, yeah. So I love that you brought that up, and I just wanted to kind of put that out there, because we call it the small I. The small I of you is your ego. The small I of you that wants to tell you everything needs to take a back seat, so that the big I of you, your actual body that's here, that was given the perfect imprint, needs to be able to take control and be able to help you navigate through the world.
And I mean, the big I actually knows how the vehicle works.
Exactly. It is the vehicle.
Right? It's like,
it's the little I that's trying to drive the car from the back seat.
If anyone thinks that we actually know very much about our human form, like, we're very misguided. Like, we don't know nearly what we could know.
Or what we're even capable of.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, because we keep getting in our own way.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so I am a 2-4 manifester.
Yes. So let's start really quick with we all understand archetypes, right? So archetypes, we have the Aries, we have, you know, Taurus, we have all those things. Well, in human design, we have the same thing, and it's broken down into 4 technical types, with one being split off into 2 types. So we have the manifestors, which were the originals, which is what Dear Tracy is, manifestors. Then we have projectors, we have generators, and the generators are split off into generators and manifesting generators. And then we have reflectors. So each of those archetypes has a basic way of operating in the world. And so we talk about strategy. Whenever you hear somebody talk about human design, you'll hear them refer back to your strategy and your authority. One of the beautiful things about human design is, again, it gives you the autonomy. It teaches you how to trust yourself in being able to make decisions, instead of constantly putting your decision-making process out into the world, expecting other people to be able to do for you, or expecting people to make decisions for you, or wanting, you know, even just in searching through various, you know, gifts or the various tests, I was giving my authority away. I was telling somebody else to tell me, how am I supposed to operate? Well, this is my imprinting. This is my blueprint. I'm a manifesting generator. So I have a generator type. So there's manifesting generators, and we make up about 80% of the world. So some people go, oh, we're in the majority, we suck, we're boring, everybody's a generator. But the beautiful thing about generators is that we are here to build. In the BG5 world, which is the business application of human design, we're called builders. We're either builders or express builders. So we either do things really fast, but we are here to build, to create, to make things happen in the world, right? But in order to do that, we have to do it in response to something. We can't just go out and make things happen. Our lives, we have this sacral center that literally is this giant magnet that pulls things into our auric field for us to respond to every single day. This is how Tracy and I met. She wrote to me and I had a response. Yes, heck yes. This is what I want to be doing. This is where I'm going in my life. But I didn't reach out to her. I wasn't able to do that. I'm not initiating anything. My job is to respond to all the beautiful things. And my job is to be very, very, very protective of that energy. I have life force energy. I have all the energy in the world to do whatever I want. But the thing is if I'm not using that energy correctly, I get burnout just like everybody else. Mm-hmm. Generators have life force energy. We have this endless amount of energy, but we have to protect it. And unfortunately, that's one thing that isn't taught enough in human design. They're like, oh, you have energy, you can go do it. But the problem is we became slaves to everything. The generator type, again, if you kind of think about it in a devious way, manifestors were the ones who are designed. So now we're going to talk about Tracy a little bit. Manifestors are the ones that are designed to just go and do it, to just do it. They're allowed to initiate in life. They get an inspirational hit and they are off to say, this is what's going to happen. But again, because they get these inspirations, they have to tell those that will be impacted around them. They have to inform people what's going to happen, because otherwise people get a little perturbed with them because they're just doing it. Everyone's like, I can't keep up with you. Where are you going? Mm-hmm. But they don't have a life force energy to sustain that. Mm-hmm. So if they have an idea, guess what? Well, let's get the people who have all the energy to do what I want them to do. So a lot of the dictators in the past, a lot of that, you know, I'm going to build my slave tribe. The slave tribe are generators. I'm a manifester. This is my job. So if you, it's kind of a backwards thinking. It's really not how it worked. But if you think about it, you know, if I don't have all the energy, it makes sense for me to utilize those who do. And in a sense, I've homogenized those people to believe that this is what they're supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be working.
Right. And there's plenty of that in society. Oh
yeah. And so again, we're giving you your autonomy back, either as a generator or a manifestor or a manifesting generator. So as a manifesting generator, we're giving your autonomy back to understand that that is not for everybody. You have to be wise about who you give your energy to. Even though you have all the energy and you can give it to everybody, you get to choose who to give that energy to.
100%.
So as we continue on with the manifestors, again, they're the initiators. They're going to go do things. But again, they do not have that life force sustaining energy. So their job is to pitch the ball. Their job is to get the ball rolling. And then there's a generator who goes, oh, I really like that idea. And they jump on board and they continue to build that.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
And I can
You
tell
know?
you that, that in terms of, that's like so true for me. Like, and when I get myself in situations where I created something that I have to maintain, it's such a life suck for me. It just spirals down. It's like I have to constantly be on to the next thing. And it's really helped me to understand that through the human design thought stream paradigm, understanding is not to expect myself to enjoy creating and not to expect or require myself to sustain, because it's just not the way
Yes.
my energy flows. It's not going to work for me.
Yes.
And it comes from like compassion for myself and respect for myself and appreciation for the uniquely way I'm wired.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
Because I would love to be a generator, like
no, you don't.
yeah.
And I'd love to be
it would be really,
manifestor.
really handy to be able to maintain some of the great things I've created. But,
Exactly.
It's hard
thing
sometimes
is,
to pass the ball.
right. But at the same time, sorry, I gotta answer this really quick.
Okay.
So yes, absolutely. It is great, but you have to think about it on the other end. You wouldn't have the ability to initialize those ideas. You wouldn't be given that initiation because that's designed for you. It's not designed for a generator. So as a generator, you're not designed to be initiating things. Now, as a manifesting generator, we have a little bit of leeway there because we're kind of a combination of that manifestor and the generator energy, but we can still only initiate in response to something. So something has to be in our field, our auric energy, in order for us to respond to it, and then we can initiate off of it. One of the best ways to kind of think about it is if you ask generators generally yes and no questions. So if you ask a generator if they want to go for a walk, they're on their way going. If they're going to go, it's a yes and they're moving, or it's a no and they're staying still. Manifesting generators might start, but then get to the door and be like, yeah, no, never mind, I changed my mind. So they jump the gun, and then they have to like go back and check in and make sure that it was okay. Should I be doing this? Is this really what I want to do? That's how that one kind of works a little bit.
Interesting. Well, I want to touch really quickly on the other two, the projectors and the reflectors.
Yes,
they're
absolutely.
not as common, and because they're not as common, they've been a little bit more difficult for me to kind of get a grasp on.
Yeah. So I have a projector son. So I actually am very familiar with projectors as well. And I study the projector almost as much as I study generators because my partner, his dad, and I are both generator types. I'm a manifesting generator, he's a generator, and our son is projector. And so as we talked about, the manifestor's here to get the ball rolling, the generator's here to pick it up and make it go. But the projector is here to say, hey, generators, you probably could do this a little bit better if you did this instead. If I give you a little bit of advice, would you be able to manage your energy a little bit better? Let me do this for you. Let me help you understand how to use your energy to your best advantage. Because a lot of times we'll just keep going. And the projector's like, hold on, wait a second. There's a better way to do this. Or hold on, wait a second. Let's change this plan a little bit. In BG5, they're called the Divisors. Their job is to be here to guide the energy of others in general.
And there's a certain vision that goes into that. Like there's a certain capacity to be able to see from a higher perspective and to see an organizational potential there. That's really a gift.
Yes. And that also has to do with the auric energy of each of the types. So as a manifestor, you actually have a repelling energy.
Yeah.
You actually push people away because if you don't, how can you be in your own energy to create? Yeah. You can't be in your own energy to create if other people are impacting you. So you literally push people out. You have this protective bubble that pushes people away. Whereas generators are like, hey, what's going on? Come on in. I want to hug you. Yeah. We have this enveloping. We actually surround people. So for those that don't like that, that can be really uncomfortable too. But as you said, there's this insight that projectors have because they have a penetrating aura. They actually go into everybody's. They literally pierce everyone else's energy. And there's a very special connection between generators and projectors. And it's because they can pierce through that energy, but they can make people really uncomfortable because they see you. They see your potential. They see things about you that you can't see. Because that is their design. They're here to guide, and you can't guide unless you have that special penetrative energy. So for projectors, they're we kind of talked about them inadvertently, their strategies and things like that. Their strategy is to wait to be invited. They have to be invited into a conversation. They have to be invited to give their energy, to give their advice. And when they don't, which is the problem that most projectors have, because either they've been told to just do it like the manifester, or they've been told to work like a generator, is that when they do initiate something, they tend to be either not heard or they tend to be rejected. Like, it offends people because, again, they're giving advice from this penetrative space. And that, again, makes other people uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. Okay. So one of the things that I'm like reflecting on as you speak is that you're really giving us a lot of examples on how we as people work together and interact together. And I know that in the business paradigm, there's like team building, and that this is one tool that's been really, really helpful for people in terms of team building and, you know, who to hire, that kind of conversation. So if we've got two kinds of generators, manifesting generators, we've got manifestors, we've got a projector on our team who do that visionary kind of organizational structural advising. And then the last one's the reflectors.
Mm-hmm. So the reflectors come in as the temperature for the environment. They come in and they're able to literally become a mirror for the environment. So if the environment's not doing well in whatever's going on, they're going to be the ones that are going to feel it and reflect it back. They are literally human mirrors.
Okay.
They are, where the other four types are solar beings, they are a lunar being, which is the reason why they're only 1%. They are here to, again, kind of be the surveyors of the whole big picture and to say, hey, this is what's going on. They might go talk to a projector and be like, hey, this is what's going on. And then the projector's going to go, hey, this is what we need to change, to the generator. And the generator's going to go, okay, this is what we're doing. The manifestor's off in their other world. They already left the space. They're not even paying attention to what's going on anymore. They're not even paying attention. They're like, hey, I'm off to my new ball game. Let's go. Whereas everybody else is making things run.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, and a reflector, they are beautiful creatures because they move to the beat of their own drum, because they aren't guided by the sun. They are guided by the moon. So the lunar cycle for a reflector is super important. And for those that are making, so everyone has their own decision making strategy as well. And we haven't talked about those at all, and I'm not going to worry about it.
Yeah.
We can talk about that in a whole other story or in a whole other ball game, but you'll find out there. But their authority, because we've talked about everyone's authority, how they are to make decisions. Their authority is to wait for a 28-day cycle. And within that cycle, following the energetics of the moon, they're going to be able to gain clarity about bigger decisions in their life. So it's not like, should I brush my teeth and ask the moon, and 28 days later I get an answer. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about larger. So in general, overall, they're there to be protective of an environment. So in a workspace, they're kind of great HR. They're the kind of people who are great to say, hey, this is what's going on in our environment. We might want to think about changing something. This isn't quite exactly what we meant. They're amazing healers because they are able to sense what's going on around them without anybody using any words.
And they're not using their energy to do these other things. So then they have this deep well of resource for this. I think, I lost my whole train of thought. I do apologize. Like,
Go ahead.
Oh, I know. One of the things that I was really listening to today, and also like when you gave your offering, I think it might've been 2 years ago. It might've been like towards the end of 2020 that I initially connected with your work, but is like marketing so that people of these all different styles can have time to reflect and make their decisions, have time to see something that sparks their interest. You know, like when you look in a business field, you can look at how you're building your team, but you can also look at your customers as people that have all of these different designs and ways of being too. And so like, it's a lovely thing to start to look deeper and in a more complex way at how we operate, because I think it's going to be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Because instead, there's a lot of marketing around like fast action bonuses and like, let's do it now. Well, 90% of the people that are out there are not designed to make decisions in the moment.
Yeah.
There is a very small percentage of people who are designed to make decisions in the moment. And then if you think about it, then there's the people who need more time. There's these emotional wave people who need more time to make decisions. They need to not make a decision in a high or a low or in the moment. And so we need to make sure that we give them that time to make a decision and not just limit them because, oh, well, you're not going to get the fast action bonus because you can't make decisions fast enough. That has nothing to do with them not being able to make decisions fast enough. It has to do with them being true to who they are. So they're not going to enter an opportunity or working with you or taking classes from you in a way that isn't right for them. And then they end up ultimately regretting it, or they burn out, or they get bitter, or they get angry, or they
just
get
anxious. They're just anxious about it. I mean, it's really important to remember it's not just how much I sell. It's like, are the people that are landing in front of me, are they really at ease with their decision and ready for the message I want to share? Like, we want the right customers, the right clients, the right people.
Well, and then also knowing that if you only offer these fast action bonuses and that's the only time that people are taking advantage of things, that tells you what kind of person you're working with.
Right.
And again, that also gives you a way to decide, well, how do I continue to work with them? Because if I'm working with people who are in the moment and those are the kind of people, then I need to make sure that I'm making decisions and I'm doing things for them in the moment. But is that also right for me? So when it goes back to like, how do I market for me? What is the marketing style that I should be using? I'm actually working right now with a coach, who was amazing in terms of her messaging and how she's brought how to actually do copyright for the different types.
Yeah.
And so I'm getting ready to work with her and I'm super excited about learning that because this is also a tool that I want to be able to offer when I go into readings with my clients and be like, hey, these are styles that you could probably work with. But if we want to kind of shift into that right now, I can tell you what I've been working with personally.
Oh, I'm so excited to hear about this because you have a really nice long-term project and
yes.
I want on board with this. So let's hear about it.
So the first part of that is, okay, I'm doing this as a commitment in the moment because this feels good for me as a manifesting generator, but knowing that manifesting generators tend to change our minds really quickly too. So I'm right now I'm lit up by this and that's the reason why I'm moving forward with that. But so I am a student of BG5 and I actually do readings in that, or should say consultations in that, as well as human design readings. But I am a 1-3. So we didn't even talk about profiles. I mean, guys, this could go on forever. This conversation could go on for 6-8 hours. I've taught at Tracy's studio for 8 hours and still couldn't get through half of the foundations that I wanted to get through. So just to let you know, I'm doing as best I can to kind of get as much out there. And that's also the reason why manifesting generators have a tendency to talk really fast, because we have all this energy and we were trying to get it out there for you. So you'll hear me. I try to slow down because I'm like, oh, all right, there you go again. You're all locked up. But so I'm a 1-3. The 1-3 manifesting generator. So the 1-3 is the profile lines, and my profile lines are 1 as an investigator and authority. So in human design, it's known as an investigator. In BG5, it's known as the authority. And essentially that means that I'm the kind of person who researches everything. I go and I find an interest and something lights me up and I'm taking every course, I'm finding every book, I'm reading every resource, I'm tapping into everything I can because I feel like the only way I can know everything is if I've done all the study myself, which makes me then an authority in what I'm doing. My other line is the 3, which is the line that bumps into the world physically and I can't, what's the other word? Metaphorically and physically. Life bumps into us. We learn best through the process. We learn best through trial and error. And so because of that, that is how we share with other people our wisdom, what we're here for. Now, generators and 1-3, anything that's a lower trigram, which is a whole nother ball game, but Tracy is also a lower trigram. So she's a 2-4. We can talk about that in a second, but we're here for ourselves. We're here for our own journey. We're not here for somebody else's journey. We're not here for an interpersonal connection. We're here for our personal connection, our intra-personal. All right. So as a 1-3, if all I'm going to do is investigate everything on the face of the planet and I'm going to learn through trial and error, how am I going to build a business off of that? So part of my marketing is all about sharing what I'm investigating. It's sharing what I'm learning through each of the trials and what each of the errors that I've made in my life as an example to other people so that they can learn from that and then be able to make decisions based on that, or to be able to gain clarity around their own positioning. So the project that I have started, which actually starts tomorrow, because tomorrow is the Rave New Year. So when we talk about the I Ching, there's those 64 gates, and they don't go 1 through 64. They have a random order that they go through. But the start codon, so the start of the new year is at gate 41, which is actually on the 22nd of the year, of the new year. So our new year does not actually start until tomorrow. So starting with the 41st gate, the gate of constriction, I believe I already wrote it. So I'm like, now I got to remember if I wrote it right. But the gate of constriction, we're starting the new year. This is a start codon. It's how we start to kick off things in the world. It is actually when we, just to kind of tie this back a little bit for you too, when we talked about quantum physics, because this is one that took me a little while to understand how did it work in, but that's where that genetic coding is. 41 has a specific code in the genetic code. It's got certain chemicals that it's attached to that are in the body as well, that are kicker offers. It starts whatever the growth pattern.
Okay. Yeah.
So that is actually, it's called the start codon. So we start with the 41st gate, and for now until the 22nd of next year, I'm actually going to be discovering, I'm going to dive into them. Each gate is lit up by the solar. So we're going through the solar translets. We're going to be looking at each gate, and each gate has about 6 days. It's 5 to 6 days of being in existence. So that energy of each gate is there for about 6 days.
Wow. Okay.
So there's 6 lines, 1 through 6, right? So same thing. So for each day, there's also, if you actually want to follow me on Instagram as well, you'll notice that I've been actually sharing what each day's themes are and how you can kind of utilize the energy of that day. So today is a 6-line day, which is the role model day, which is the day where you stand up in your leadership. It's a day that you, or not, by the way, everything is always or not. It's this or that. It's never only this. So you may not feel like showing up as a role model or as a leader if there's no point. But when you find the purpose, you can show up. So this energy is there. It's there to guide you and help you. Well, each gate also has a little bit of influence of those 6 lines as well. So I'll be sharing that. But the biggest thing that I'm going to be sharing about each of those is the money line and how you can best utilize the energy of that gate to unlock your own prosperity, to unravel your personal prosperity codex, your prosperity matrix. And over the course of the year, you're going to look at your gates of your own chart. You can look at your open centers, your defined centers, and really begin to pick up on what it is that you are naturally designed to gift to your people, and see how, and then I'm basically leading you through a series of questions, whether you have a defined gate or you have it in undefined at that time, to say, hey, this is a good growth area for you. This is an area where you should be, like, these are some things to reflect on. If you have it as an undefined area, FYI, that's a money area for you. If it's in a defined area, it's not a money area for you, but you do have access to that energy. So let's take a look at how you might apply that in your marketing right now, or how can you apply that in the offerings that you give to your clients, or how can you apply that to your own personal life. So in one of them, it's all about pleasure, right? How are you applying pleasure in your own life so that you have the energy to show up for your clients?
Yeah. And pleasure is such a good word too, because without pleasure, there is no prosperity. Like, pleasure is a prosperity thread. And that's like that kind of, when you get that pleasure, that joy, that harmony, like all of those different qualities that go into what we call prosperity. So it sounds like this is a 1-year journey to follow along with you, and to have some prompting questions through each gate as we go through the year around the umbrella topic of prosperity. I
Mhm.
love this. I'm so
Yes.
excited for this. So, and it also sounds like it would be helpful to have your own chart printed out and prepared so you
Absolutely.
can follow along. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely want to, whether you're going to grab it online. If you go to bit.ly HD-charts, I think I have it as, it's a short link I have. You can also follow me on Instagram. So if you go to the HD Yogi, so THEHD Yogi, um, I do have, I think I have a link in my bio to be able to go and get your own free chart as well.
Gotcha.
And I'm not going to get into any of the.
You need your birth date, you need the birth time, you need your birth location, just like you do for astrology. You put that information
Correct.
in it, and then you can print your chart out, and then you can have something to follow along. So I'm going to put all of those links down in the bottom of the comments of the podcast, the YouTube, so you guys can find it.
Yeah. So yeah, the best thing for you to do is to know what your chart is. And even if you don't, so if you don't have the gate activated normally in your chart, when that transit is in place, you do have that activated. It doesn't change you, but it does give you access to energy that you wouldn't normally have, or it gives you access to resources that you would not normally have in your design. This is kind of how transits in general work. So whether we're talking astrological transits, or whether we're talking about even your interactions with other people, your impact and your influence by other people, you have access to this. And if it's in, like I said, if it's in an undefined channel, that could be a potential area of wisdom for you to be able to share your own gifts, your own insights, your experiences, depending on who you are, what your profile is. So we were talking about mine as being a 1-3. And that's my marketing style, is to be able to share what it is that I'm doing, what it is that is lighting me up at the moment. Whereas Tracy is a 2-4, so she is a natural. So a natural is what the 2 line is in BG5. It's also known as the Hermit in human design, and the networker, or I don't know what it is in BG5 at the moment, but the networker. So she's a natural networker. She's a natural force of energy that's going to bring people, that's going to bring a community together. And so for her, having a smaller community of people for her to communicate with is so super important, because she can't give her guidance, she can't give her wisdom unless she's recognized for it and called out. So when she starts to initiate things, that even though she is a manifester, so this is the quagmire of her design. We've had this conversation before. Yeah. Even though she's designed to initiate things, she also is just a harbor of amazing information as a hermit, who needs to be recognized for her beautiful insight so that she can initiate. So it's a little bit of a, like, I want to be called out, so that, there's this leniency of like the reluctant leader. Yes. I'm like, I have this tendency, I can do it, but I want somebody to recognize me first. And then I only want to offer it to a small community of people, because not everyone needs all of my wisdom. I am going to be selective as the networker. I'm going to be selective about the community that I'm gathering, and really guiding that community, as opposed to a 5 line, which is someone who's going to be influencing and impacting the world. They don't need to know who you are. They don't want to know who you are. In fact, Tracy wants to know who her people are, and she wants to nourish them, and she wants to develop them, and she wants to care for them as she watches them grow.
Yeah. So this is very true. Yeah. And this is what, I mean, when I say it's like so multidimensional. So if you're listening and you're like, whoa, head spinning, mind blown, what do I do with all this? Like, take heart, because it's like becoming a wine connoisseur. It takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of sipping. It takes a lot of comparison. It takes a lot of like looking at it from different angles and different situations. And like, Lia said, you're experimenting with it.
That's what it is.
So I'm going to experiment by following along with you this year.
I'm excited.
So my commitment level, I'm kind of like the squirrel. I'm going to chase all the shiny objects.
So here, I'll give you a little hint here, guys, as well, for all of you. If you have in your open centers, this would be the best way. If you're like an open center, if you're like me, who doesn't, follow along as well, you kind of get sidetracked, and squirrel is your favorite place to be. go through your chart first and look at all the open centers. And what I would do is I would just numerically write down the numbers in order of all of those gates, whether they're defined, like they're colored in or not, doesn't matter, but just all the gates that have open numbers, right? And I would put all the open numbers in the open center, sorry, all the gates in those open numbers. And then I keep saying it backwards, all of the numbers in the open centers. There we go. And I would just put them down in order and then only look for those ones that show up. Because if you can't focus on everything, focus on what's important to you. Okay. And know that it's really your open centers that money wisdom comes from. That's where your money comes from. And that is where you want to tap into.
So when I look at my chart, I've got all the shapes. The shapes that are not colored in are the open ones.
Right.
And then I'm going to look at the numbers that are around the periphery of that shape.
Yep.
And if those are open, as in not colored in, then those are my numbers that I'm going to highlight.
I would, yes. Well, even if they are colored in, because if it's an open center, if it's an undefined center, that is a wisdom potential.
Okay.
If it is a defined center, that's just your imprinting. That's who you are and how you show up. So then in that case, you want to look at that gate and say, am I working in my shadow of this gate or am I working in the light of my gate?
Gotcha. Okay.
And then being able to recognize the difference between those two. But at any open centers, you want to see, because that's a potential for you to become wise about that area and be able to gift other people your wisdom at that place.
Excellent. Excellent.
So
I love this conversation. I want to continue it for several more hours, but I think what we need to do is bring you to Cleveland. You know,
absolutely.
Did you guys have big snow the way we did this past week?
We haven't had any snow this week.
Oh my gosh, we had big snow this past week.
I know, we didn't get hit.
You didn't get it. It must have just like skirted underneath you.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, don't come this week. They're still, like shoveling with bulldozers to get the snow out of the way. But it seems like it's a pretty mild winter so far. So maybe sooner rather than later, we can bring you into the city and you can share your wisdom, and the people that are interested in this can come and learn more. I know the teacher trainees that participated this past year were really inspired by it and asked to look further, deeper into it. And they also suggested that next year there's a little precursor. So it's just to say that if you're listening, if you hung in there with us, like, thank you and yes, and just we'll keep nibbling at it, we'll just keep sipping and comparing and experimenting and exploring. And it's all towards this idea that you are so unique and wonderful, and alignment to who you actually are designed to be, how you were designed to be, is like, that's the key to success under any definition, and happiness and contentment in life. So
yeah, absolutely. And anytime you get any new subject, honestly, it's like drinking from a fire hose. Yeah. There's all the grammar. I'm a homeschool parent as well, so I have this whole philosophy of how you go about it. You have to get all the grammar first. You have to understand all the words, and then once you understand all the words, then you can start connecting the dots. And once you start connecting the dots, then you can make decisions and start to experiment and like really start to play with how that works for you personally. But it takes a little bit of time. And one of the best things that you can do is, one, to investigate your own chart. You can always Google a gate or a center or any of that information. And you can also reach out to a reader, somebody who actually does readings on for your human design chart. I can be one of those. There's plenty of other people on the face of the planet. They're all over Instagram. It's who you connect to. And again, this is where I talk about your fractals. So when you're reading when you read what they write, that's going to tell you if that's your fractal or not. You're gonna relate to the way they speak about the subject. I was actually just doing the same thing for another. I was teaching inadvertently, haphazardly, at I was teaching yoga, but I was still talking about human design at a retreat, and one of the people who were there, one of the attendees, happens to be a student of the person who's leading it. So it's her own student. And I know that she's a friend of mine that we actually met through human design. And she's actually one of my past summit participants. She's one of my past summit coaches. And I know that she teaches human design. And the girl's like, no, but I really relate to how you explain it. Like the way you talk about it, I understood better than when she taught me. Not that she didn't teach it to me correctly. It's just, it resonated for me with the language that you use and the patterning that you say things in. And so that's what I talk about when I tell somebody, that's why I'm like, hey, come to me and get your reading. I may not resonate with you, and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that the information isn't true. It doesn't mean that the information isn't there for you, and it doesn't mean that it doesn't apply to you. What it means is that you got to find the teacher or the guide or the coach who is someone you resonate with, and you may not even know why until you look at their chart and compare your chart to their chart and realize they fill in holes that you're empty. And that's why you guys resonate.
And there, that click is indescribable, but that's like the essence of the whole conversation today. It's like how to find that click within yourself, within your life, within your people, within your teachers, like all of it. So
absolutely.
Sat Nam, Lia, Sat Nam. And if you're listening, please like, subscribe, comment, share your thoughts, scroll down and gain the information, maybe travel along with Lia's Instagram story, show up for class, and I'll share some of my travels along the Instagram journey through the gates of prosperity. And let's see what 2022 can bring. Sat Nam, sweetie.
Sat Nam.
Thank you.